What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Truth War. Today, we are going to talk about the Houston Texans. There's been no real big news that's come up with Houston. Other than that, there's nothing really crazy. Other than that I could find. Going back to scrolling down this, D'Angelo Ross, cornerback for the Texans, signed a contract extension a couple days ago. He will be a restricted free agent in 2025. It's a 1-year extension. Nothing crazy. But scrolling back up, the Texans they haven't made any big moves yet, but they have a surplus, an enormous amount of cap. They have about $74 million in cap, and really they're not in a bad situation. They do have to sign some key starters and key guys to really help this team. Both where they were, I'm surprised at where they were last year to this year was an enormous jump, and I'm surprised that they're sitting in this place, possibly being able to make another enormous jump if they play their cards right. The Texans last year were 3-13-1. Nothing crazy. They had the second overall pick for a reason. This year, they went 11-7, counting the playoff win, 10-7 in the regular season. That is an enormous jump. They had so much success. To say that it wasn't just C.J. Stroud is an understatement. Is an overstatement. It wasn't just C.J. Stroud. It was the coaching staff, the people they brought in, the other picks they drafted. They just had a great offseason. And this is one of the things I like to kind of preach is like, you can have one really good draft in offseason and your team is turned around for the future. It doesn't take like years. You just have to play your cards right. We're going to kind of look at some of these market values that that Sports Track, like we usually does, have in mind. But just keep in mind, the Houston Texans have about $74 million in cap. Now they do have a couple. They don't have enough picks to. They don't have enough picks to cover all the positional needs they've had leaving this year. There are a couple of things which I think will probably happen and will be signed, but there are some players that I don't know. Just getting straight into it. Nico Collins will be a free agent in 2025. They might extend him. We'll see what that happens. Jonathan Grenard, I think this is a guy who could potentially come back to the Houston, the Texans. They do need a starting defensive end because he, of course, is in free agency. This is a guy who I think a lot of teams would go after. He's only 26. I mean, you could give probably about 4 years. If you were to, let's say you do sign Jonathan Grenard, it's going to cost you about $13.5 million per year. Oops. 13,500,000. You'd have left roughly about $60,500,000 in cap left. But that does take a huge dip into a big need of theirs, which is defensive end. For $13.5 million a year, that's not bad. Let's say and then Dalton Schultz, who says he's a guy who wants to stay. If you re-signed him, that's roughly $11.3 million. So that would roughly put you at 49,000, about 160 $49,161,000 still left over for cap. But you've taken out two big needs, which is tight end and defensive end. The rise of tight end is starting. The need for a very versatile tight end is starting to come out. So good tight ends are on the market. One guy who I don't necessarily know if they'll go is Steven Nelson, just because of his age. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying because of that age, they might try to lean away and try to get younger at that position, especially if they do decide to go re-sign Jonathan Grenard and Dalton Schultz. By signing these two players, Now you're kind of sitting here with, well, you only have a couple needs left. Draft really shakes up. I believe they only have a first, second, and third each. So they only have 3 picks in the top 3 rounds. Another guy who, you could resign that. You could resign Shaquille Griffin, who is considerably cheaper as well. There are lots of things you could do. I do think they only probably signed one. I don't think they signed two, just because of how, unless they really want to have depth at the position, from positions losing to gaining. The big thing is a starter. You're losing a starter, but other than that, it's nothing crazy. I will talk about the draft though. With the draft, I did have cornerback out of Clemson was available, but I decided to go a different route just because of what kind of the draft fell. But needless to say, cornerback could be something they do address in the draft, but it will be seen. But let's say they do re-sign Steven Nelson. He's going to cost you roughly $10.2 million. So that's going to leave you with around, say, give or say 38,000. We'll say we'll round it up to it's 38. No, sorry, 38 million point 900,000. But we'll just round it up and say 39 million. You have roughly about $39 million in cap left if you were to re-sign Steven Nelson, who is a guy who you have experience with under this defense, and he's becoming a returning starter. Another one who maybe you move on from, maybe you don't, is Sheldon Rankins. That's something to watch. He's going to cost you roughly about $10 million, and you still have cap to re-sign or sign other players as well. So let's say you do want to let Sheldon Rankins bring back Sheldon Rankins. Well, that's going to cost you about 10 million. So then you'd have around, probably, I'd say 29,000 left, give or say. I mean, that's still a lot of cap we're talking with. A lot of things you can move around, considering you still need 2 starting linebackers. I mean, that's like, even with signing that, you could still go sign a linebacker and then be sitting in a very, very good position. The one thing I will say is they don't necessarily need to start at the receiver position, but they could also bring Noah Brown back. I wouldn't necessarily say that's not a possibility. Noah Brown could be coming back. But like I said before, I could also see them moving on. I could see them maybe picking up another receiver for agent if they really wanted to go that position. They do have considerable amount of cap. Devin Singletary is a guy who they could bring back. He's only 26, which he feels like he's played for forever. I mean, he's just one of those guys. That's a position they do need to address, is depth at the running back position. So they could bring back Singletary, and that's another guy who I could reasonably see them bringing back. Singletary would cost them around $5.4 million. So if we did the math really quickly, that would bring them at around $23.5 million. You have $23.5 million, and you need 2 starters at linebackers, a safety, a running back, or you have 2 starters. You need 2 starting linebackers, a backup linebacker, a backup defensive tackle, and a backup safety, and you're sitting comfortably. I mean, look, you can realistically get 3 starters if you want to in the draft in the first 3 rounds. So you'd be in a very good situation. Plus, with $23.5 million still left in the cap, you can make moves. What I'm saying is they can splurge on some players. They can go out and maybe get some higher tier players to help this team out, and not necessarily bring back the same players. That they have a lot of things they need to do. I will say though, they're not going to walk. I don't think they're going to walk in the draft with a lot of needs at the starting position. I wouldn't imagine. But needless to say, getting into the draft. If this will load. Loading. I guess I'll redo the draft actually. Now that I think about it, let's try this. I want to do a live draft with y'all about I'll do a live draft with y'all on one is this draft that I'm gonna do live is being able to with calculating with the free agency. This is the draft I'm gonna be able to do. Sorry, I'm losing my. This is the draft I'll be able to do, kind of attacking the needs that they have post my like. What if they resign everybody? Um, they need two starting linebackers, backup linebacker, defensive tackle, and a safety. Right now, linebackers Cedric Gray and Edward Cooper and Jeremiah Trotter are all going to fit around pick, let's see, 59. Jair's Newton's available. Brian Murphy's available. Some guys like that kind of throw in a mix into things. Do you necessarily take a guy? Do you take a defensive tackle now and see if you can get a linebacker later, or do you take a linebacker now? It's in a really big question. But let's say they do go best player available for positional needs, and they do go defensive tackle. I think that's more realistic than probably reaching on a linebacker. Teams don't really go out and reach for linebackers. That's just the truth. Unless you're the Lions and you just take Cedric Gray in this spot. So you take care of one linebacker draft need, and you also take care of your defensive tackle so far. Tyree Hooper, linebacker out of Missouri, super athletic, good playmaker. He's a difference maker. He does need a specific role, though. He was primarily a two-gap scheme player, but he was great downhill. Good at stopping the run. I like this pick right here. So now you take care of two starting linebacker positions. Still need a safety and another linebacker. So if we went all, you could get Junior Colson. The next best available safety is pick 136 is what's projected. Keaton Olupo out of Oregon. He's a guy who can give you multiple looks. This is a guy I talked about before. He's really good safety. Who, if you do get him at that position, it's really nice. So I'll probably go Junior Colson now, and hope we can land the player I want. Yes. And there you go. Great safety who I've talked about before in this draft who could really develop and become something nice. Sometimes he falls, sometimes he doesn't. It's just the way of the draft. But no, getting into this draft, this is the ideal situation you want to be in. Not trading up because I just don't know. There aren't any rumors. I like to off of rumors for trading up. I don't like to throw out random ideas. But since they do have enough cap to cover positional needs with the cap that they have, I will do that. And then I'll want to also do a mock draft live of kind of my thought process on it. One, hey, you're able to refill if you do resign everybody. You're able to refill all of the linebacker spots. Maybe you bring in a linebacker, you resign a linebacker. Maybe you do. That's a very good possibility. You get Jair Newton, a great defensive tackle out of Illinois, who can be really impactful for you. Then you get the safety out of Oregon State, who's really good. I mean, look, that is a true safety, and he can do a lot of great things for you. I think it's a big upside. We'll see kind of how the draft falls. We'll see how the free agency goes and kind of how the draft falls later in the year. But I mean, look, I think they have a bright future. Getting back into kind of the draft I went to before. I'll quickly pull up the board which I went with. With the first pick, I decided to go the same route. I chose defensive tackle Newton out of Illinois. I thought this was a great pick just to fill in real quickly for a player of need. With the second pick, I went defensive end, and then I went Adiza Isaac, edge out Penn State to fill in that other defensive end role that Grenard left. With the third round pick, I went Ben Sinnott, tight end out of Kansas State, to fill in the tight end role that sorry, mine's blanking, that Don Schultz would have. And then I believe was it. Sorry, guys, I'm looking for. Oh, with the fourth pick, I took Chua Smith Wade out of Washington State. A smaller guy, but a guy at the end of the day will probably get the job done to an extent. He is later on, so it's tough to get corners. Um, then I was able to attack the linebackers. I got Darius. Sorry, I'm gonna butcher that name. I'm not really gonna say it. I got Darius for linebacker, and then I got where is it? Not this lady. I got um where is it? Oh, Terrion Harper out of Missouri as well. I was also able to sign Terrion Harper to get on this team as well. That I got those two linebackers. I thought, maybe they, it could be something to build off of for the future if they don't decide to address linebacker in the offseason, which they can. I'm not saying they won't. And then with the backups that I got, I was able to get defensive tackle and safety. Sadly enough, I couldn't address the other positions just because they don't have enough draft picks yet. I'm not saying they won't. I'm just saying they didn't have it yet. If I can, Gabe Hall, defensive tackle out of Baylor, is a guy who I signed or drafted as a position to fill in. 6'5", 295, and a 3'4". He is that big guy who eats up blocks. But I mean, he could be a 4'3" and just be crazy against tackles. The one thing he does need to work on is he doesn't have really a good pass rush. But I mean, this guy will stop the run. Like, he's a great rotational run stopper, no doubt. He just needs to work on his pass rushing moves. And he doesn't have that explosiveness. That's something he can also work on. But I mean, I think needless to say, you get a guy this late in the draft, who can come in and be a depth piece. At the very least, a backup who can stop the run really well and be a rotational run stopper. I think it's a great pick at that size. And then I went safety for the last pick. And then if I can find it, I went DeAndre Taylor Dermanson, safety out of Texas Tech, to fill in that last safety role. Going back to this, kind of let me know what y'all think about that. Do y'all like this new kind of way that I just literally right now just decided to do? Do you like me doing the two different mock drafts, kind of talking about the kind of going off the chart, like, hey, if they sign guys, what would the draft look like? And then also, what was the mock draft I had? The only thing that would change is if the team didn't have enough cap to sign players, and just barely had enough cap to sign their drafted players, or they didn't have or a negative cap. That's the only thing that would change, is if that happened. So that's the only thing I don't really want to touch. But other than that, I mean, let me know what y'all think. Do y'all like the way I did this draft? Do y'all not like it? What are your thoughts on it? What are your thoughts? That the Texans are one of these few teams who could really be interesting, just like Green Bay. Other than that, thank you all for watching. Let me know what y'all think in the comments down below, and I will see y'all next time.